Yeah. Should we go from the top?
Yeah, we'll go from the top. Welcome back. Episodes 28, part of the order, brought to you by Thoughts from the Bench. Boys, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, doing pretty good. In the middle of a move now, so I'm happy to stop packing boxes and talk some baseball.
There we go.
Where are you moving to?
Dormont.
Nice.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Nice little area in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited for it.
There you go.
We're good. Behind me, it's commercial right now. But behind me, the Pirates just lost 1-0. Just keep stacking up them L's, baby, for Kumar Rocker.
You stacking the L's.
Stack them. We're last, so currently we're first.
I don't know, Dre. I think the Red Sox might have worse record.
Oh, no.
I just checked today.
No?
At
Pirates
one
had a
point,
3.5 game lead today.
yeah, the Pirates have lost 7 straight.
Oh, okay. So they only have 14. Okay.
And honestly, it's at the point where, I don't know where you're staying on this, Dre, but, like, I'm getting, like, updates, and I'm just like, all right, 1-0. All right, just lose it. I don't even care if it's the Reds. We're playing the long game.
Getting swept by the Royals this weekend was incredible.
That was huge.
It was
That's what we're going to look back on when Kumar Rocker is subsequently traded away from the Pirates. But we're going to look back at it as that moment of huge.
Let's just get one pennant, though, you know? Like, yeah. I just want one division championship. I want something.
Someday. Someday in the far off future, I think. The Pirates you'll be able to raise a banner in PNC Park, and everything will be right with the world. So I wasn't here last week, guys. Episode 27 I wasn't here for. Now we kind of talked about this in the pre-production. Do either of you want to apologize to our fans for beginning a certain player who should have been episode 27?
Yeah, we messed up there. Well, we do it live. We do it just like spitting it out. And, in the heat of the moment, the pressure of hosting the show solo, our mind went to Leonard Fournette when he was a Jaguar and Vlad Guerrero Jr. So we dropped the ball on missing the best player in the league. And
so we'd like to apologize to Mike Trout. I don't know how that one just kind of slipped our mind, but we did go with Vlad, but Leonard Fournette was just like a filler because this football, and he's not even 27 anymore. He's 25 now because Ronald Jones is 27. But I don't know how. I don't know how you forget Mike Trout. He just comes zoom.
It has the lights, the bright lights were shining down on you guys, and it just happens. It happens.
We choked like the Clippers.
Oh. Well, this is the Marshall Falk episode. Just kidding. It's also the Buster Posey episode. And don't ask me to give you more than Buster Posey.
Or Bly Levin. I just Googled him.
So guys, as we're coming down to a couple weeks left in the season here, the playoff picture is starting to become a lot clearer. Teams have clinched the playoffs, but before we get into the playoff talk,
Nolan Arenado, is he 28?
That's a good one. I think
is he 28?
Yeah.
Is he? I don't think.
Is that redemption?
That might be redemption. We'll see. Trey, confirm.
28. There you go, Brooksy.
Confirmation. There you go.
I can't host, but if I don't have that pressure, I can just.
There you go. You had a little time to think about it. But we did have an MLB team get sold this week, or in the past week since we recorded last. Upon MLB owners' approval, the New York Mets have been sold to Steve Cohen. The team is valued at $2.4 to $2.5 billion. Now, I have a couple questions in regards to this sale. The first is Trey. You're the Mets guy here. What do you think about the sale?
This is incredible. It's awesome. Thank goodness the Wilpons are done owning this team. They're a curse on the franchise, and finally they have someone there who's gonna, turn them into a winner. Steve Cohen, endless amounts of money. He won't be scared to put in the team and, put in the places that really matter, because as you've seen from this team over the past, I guess the recent future, one thing that's really killed them is things like, injuries, because I feel like their medical staff, they just don't invest enough money into it to properly diagnose injuries and properly rehab guys like, Syndergaard and Matt Harvey, but even outside of that, I guess it's just like, that's like me thinking on my feet. The other obvious thing is that the Mets are now officially going to be a contender for every single free agent there is, because you don't spend $2.4 billion to just completely, and look at this roster. You just don't do it to completely restart. Like, this ain't a Derek Jeter situation by any means. Like, the Mets have pieces. Bottom line is just the Wilpons just suck. They're cursed. They stink as owners. They don't invest in the team whatsoever. They don't go out there and spend on free agents. They bring in guys like Todd Frazier who are over the hill. And you have an ace like Jake DeGrom, a guy like Michael Conforto, and Pete Alonso. Like, now that Cohen's in here, I think things are going to be looking up, especially if you're a Mets fan. You should be very happy about this.
Would you ever have thought that the New York Mets, would be worth $2.4 to $2.5 billion?
I'm actually shocked they didn't sell for more.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought that was a high number for the Mets.
It's high, but like, in retrospect, it's really not as high when you consider the last team that was sold was $2 billion, and that was Kansas City Royals. They don't have the market that the Mets do. I understand the Mets compete with the Yankees, but like, there's so many people, like, you're either Mets or Yankees, and the majority of them are Yankees, but I would say there's more people that are Mets as opposed to there's more people that are Royals, so, because the Royals, they're in Kansas City, but like, their competition's the Cardinals, so
much different.
It's much different, but that's such a smaller market compared to New York. So I'm shocked they didn't sell for more than that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, at first I was like, when you hear anything that's in like the billions, anything, just like our minds can't comprehend it. So like, I went back and I was like, oh, what were teams recently sold for? And I was like, dang, Kansas City was like 2.
Yeah.
And Mets were only at that point, so that was like surprising for me. And the one thing that, like, when I was reading an article about it this morning that like jumped out to me was the Mets haven't had a team top 10 in payroll since 2011, which for a team that calls like New York home, regardless of who you're sharing the area with, it's just such a huge market that you're not doing that. That's insane. And like, now, like, not just it's well timed too, with like Lindor, who could be coming their way, and just all these big pieces that are going to be making their way to the market.
Guys,
the Mets
like
are going to be players.
Bauer, JT Realmuto, like, all these names are going to hit free agency, because they're all free agents here at the end of the year. And I mean, now that Cohen's there, you would think the first thing he wants to do is take a look at this roster and say, all right, I spent $2.4 billion. Where else am I going to spend money in order to make sure that I get the most out of my investment? And he's going to get it right away, because he has a team right now that is a piece or two away in order to compete. Again, when you have a pitcher like Jake DeGrom, 2-time Cy Young winner, you start there, and then you look at this lineup top to bottom. I thought going in this year, one of the deepest lineups that there was in the National League East. Certain things happened. Guys got hurt. Syndergaard got Tommy John, and he got it in March, so it just started right off the bat, like, and that's just vintage Mets, I guess. But now, you would think that some of this black cloud that's surrounding this franchise is going to be lifted, because there's new spirits, there's new leadership, and anytime there's new leadership, there's high hopes for anything. So I fully expect them to be competing, at least in the short term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like always those like New York teams that are just like they're lovable, but they're always just like, Mets are gonna Mets, Jets are gonna Jets, Knicks are gonna Knicks.
Yeah.
So like on one hand, you're just sort of like, this isn't gonna like. History says that it's not gonna end well, but like something with getting the Wilpons out the door and Steve Cohen in is just something so like drastic, top to bottom, that like maybe that's just the one thing that can do that. I'm talking to you, James Dolan. You're next.
Is this kind of like a Steve Ballmer kind of situation where he buys the Clippers, comes in, spends a bunch of money, brings in Kawhi, trades a bunch of pieces for Paul George? Like, is it kind of like something like that where this guy kind of revitalizes energy into a franchise that's kind of, always tripped over their own feet, so to say?
I think it's 100% comparable.
That's a really good connection.
Yeah.
I think it's comparable. Ballmer came in and right off the bat, he laid a stamp on the franchise, and we see the return on his investment, bringing in guys like Kawhi and essentially forcing the hand in order to trade their whole entire future, for the next, honestly, as many picks as they gave up. You're talking about the future for like the next 15 to 20 years for this moment.
Yeah.
And Ballmer had a big piece in that, and he's going to be the guy that's going to sign off on those things. And if the Wilpons aren't going to sign off on paying a guy like Garrett Cole, in order to pair him with DeGrom, I'm sure he's going to sign off on, going after some of these top tier free agents. Because, when you're a team like the Mets, when you play in that market, you can't tell me you don't have the money to spend.
Yeah.
And baseball's an endless cap. So, looking at some things in the near future, talking about spending money, one of the potential things that's going to happen going in 2021, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here, going down the road, some of these changes and stuff. One of the big things is they might lift the luxury tax, which is huge, especially for Cohen. First year comes in, I spent $2.4 billion. I'm going to get it all back when I invest more in this team. We win a World Series. Come in and comes in with that mentality, you automatically win over the fans.
Yeah.
So definitely comparable. And then the other comparison, I guess, is with the Clippers, you're competing with the Lakers.
Yeah.
So like the Mets, who's the little brother of the Yankees, like it's 100% fair. I think it's valid.
Yeah. Who do you think is that one free agent that they should go after to kind of, put the stamp on it right away? Kind of like the Clippers did with Kawhi. Who's the one guy you think they should go after this summer or this offseason?
So I don't know off the top of my head, but some guys are going to be available. But guys like Trevor Bauer, I believe, will be out there. He's had a really good season. You can never have enough pitching. Again, Real Muto, best catcher in baseball. I think offensively and defensively, he's near the top. But offensively, he's definitely one of, if not the best. So he's another guy they can bring in and instantly just has an impact. George Springer's going to be a free agent. I know Nimmo's out there in center, but his bat doesn't compare to George Springer, so he's another guy I think that can come in and just put a stamp on this franchise right away. And those guys, you're not talking about $300 million contracts. You're talking about 150, maybe 175 if Bauer does sign long-term, or if he signs a 1-year, $32 million deal, like he said he's going to just sign one-year contracts. Bottom line is that every single free agent out there, they're going to have a hand in where they sign.
Last question on the topic. Who would have been a better owner, Steve Cohen or A-Rod and J-Lo?
I really want to say A-Rod and J-Lo would have been better just because they're baseball people. But I think Cohen's probably the better guy for this team because of his endless resources. Like I know that A-Rod, he has massive amounts of money in J-Lo, again, from her royalties and music, but like Cohen, I mean, head over heels just blows him out of the water in terms of fun. So I would say Cohen. I'd say they hit a home run with Cohen.
Would J-Lo and Shakira perform like a quasi halftime show?
That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, but I hold the same answer as Dre there. I think Cohen brings like that. I mean, I don't know much about the guy, but like what I hear about him and what like Dre is saying is, I mean, he's definitely motivated, and he's not going to be in here and be soft with his money and investment, which a lot of like MLB owners do. I think he's going in there not just to get a return on investment. I think he's really going for championships. So I think that would be the one that's like really driving that home beyond a little bit of the
bringing the rings.
A little bit of the sideshow. We may have the side with big names like A-Rod and J-Lo.
So to put it in perspective, numbers wise, I didn't know this. Steve Cohen, hedge fund owner, but A-Rod and J-Lo have a combined like $850 million net worth. Steve Cohen's net worth is $14.1 billion. So money talks.
Money.
I don't need to say any more than that.
Money definitely talks in that situation. Money definitely talks.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Who's all right? So earlier this week, we can kind of get into playoff talk now. But earlier this week, news came out that Rob Manfred said that a majority of owners, an overwhelming majority of owners, are interested in seeing a playoff expansion to 16 teams long term. This is the first year they're doing it. This year, they're expanding the playoffs to 16 teams, and their owners are talking about doing it in the future, extending it long term. What do you guys think about this? What do you think it could do for the sport?
You want to start, Brooks, or you want me to?
I'll start. I mean, one, like, it's sort of obvious why owners would be in favor of it. It sort of removes the incentive of putting a team together, and it sort of devalues the playoffs. And like, not saying that a down the line expansion could be good, but going to something where over half of the teams make the playoffs would just like completely dilute it in my mind. And I mean, it's something to the point where like, okay, well then if there would be realignment, I wouldn't want to see anything that big. But if there is realignment, and this would then be like a little bit more drastic changes, but like down the road have a divisional realignment that goes alongside with it. Like, so if you would have, because it's always going to be a matter of, well, how can you want to encourage divisional like rivalry and races, but with 3 divisions in each league, how do you then orchestrate who has buys, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I was just thinking, I was like, well, okay, well, I absolutely hate 16 teams. And you can sort of see, obviously, why any owner of any team would want it, because you can just field a mediocre club and luck your way into the playoffs and maybe just bank on a hot streak. So it's going to completely dilute the field. But then I was thinking, all right, well, if there ever would be, I'd want to see it come with divisional realignment. Maybe if it was, instead of 10 teams total, maybe it was 12, and you have 2 divisions in each league, have the 2 division winners have a bye, and then have the next 2 play it out. But I just think 16 is just completely ridiculous, and I think that would be one of the few things that would ring just as like that would damage Rob Manfred's like legacy and reputation, as it's already completely
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's damaged enough already.
Yeah. So this would just be his add to the list of his tarnished legacy and reputation.
What do you think, Dre?
So I just want to be, I guess, fair to the side of being for. Mm-hmm. Again, I understand why you would do it. Number one, money for the owners, that puts more money in their pockets. That's number one. Number two, you really want to try and bring in younger viewership. You want to try and progress the game, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You want to try and do that as much as possible. And as bad as Manfred has been, I have to commend him on the fact that he's at least trying to do that. He's trying to implement some unique ways in order to do so, because baseball, more than anything, is the least evolved in terms of the actual gameplay there is. Like, athletes have gotten better, yes, but like it's still 9 innings, like things like that. It's timeless. Like, whenever it ends. This year, I loved it. I love the idea of 16 teams because it's 60 games isn't enough to decide who's going to be there. So how do you kind of like bridge that? You add more playoff teams, and I think the format's awesome. But long term, I think this is the worst idea he's ever had and out of every single idea he's had, this is the most atrocious thing he's ever come up with ever. And I'm all for progressing the game myself. I came around on the DH, maybe like 3 years ago. I was like, no, I hate it. Like, I like the National League, but then the more I'm sitting there, the more I thought about the idea of watching these pitchers hit, situationally, I'm like, this is terrible. Yeah. Like, I don't want to see Francisco Liriano swing a bat. I don't want to see any pitcher swing a bat. And I don't get jazzed up when Madison Bumgarner comes in the box. Like, it just doesn't work for me, like, at all. Like, I could be Noah Syndergaard. Like, I hate it. Like, so the DH I came around to. This is something I cannot come around to. I think that the purity of having 10, I thought 8 wasn't enough. I think 10 is incredible. My cap would legitimately be 12.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, to go right now, it'd be over half the league making the playoffs. You could legitimately have a team under 500 call themselves World Series champions. And I hate that. I hate that idea. It's not like the Stanley Cup. It's not like NBA, where even though you have half the league essentially make the playoffs, like, it's just not the same. Like, they do that to try and get these young stars out there to essentially, put themselves on the map. And now the way the game is, like, these stars that are on the map, guys like Devin Booker, you expect him, like, is he going to win a championship? It's like, yeah, he's going to win a championship. When he gets out of Phoenix, it goes into a market that people want to watch people, that people want to go watch play, like the Lakers or I'm not going to say the Clippers because they choked, but, bottom line is that you want to go play.
That's the second tonight.
I'm gonna say it all night. I don't care. I like the exclusive. I like the playoffs being exclusive for the best teams. I think that when you have 10 teams make the playoffs, I think that those legitimately are the 10 best teams in baseball. Like, the way the format's set up, I think is perfect. You have 3 division winners. It's the best way to reward, who's the best at the end. And then you have the best of the rest. Like, who are the best 2 teams? I don't like the fact it's one game, but at the same time, like, it's the most exhilarating one game that there is outside of a Game 7. Like, I think it could be more exhilarating than the Super Bowl, just because Super Bowl at the same time can be depressing because it's the end of the season. Like, that sucks. But, like, kicking off the playoffs with one game, I think is incredible. Like, it's just 2 different mentalities. But I do not want to see a 78 win team potentially hoist the World Series trophy because they didn't earn it. They just kind of coasted. And they probably didn't buy at the deadline. They just got hot at the right time. It's terrible for the game of baseball. Yeah. I think it's the worst idea he's ever had. And I think it could legitimately ruin the game. It just waters it down so much. Yeah. And the goal shouldn't be let's get younger viewership in by getting more playoff teams. Should be like, no, like, the problem with baseball, to make sure that people get invested, is the length of the games. Like, you should be trying to do more things to kind of focus on that and try to get these things to go quicker. And I think he's done a decent job at that. But this playoff expansion, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it at all. Yeah, this is terrible. A terrible idea.
I mean, if you think about it, like, this year, you're giving the top 2 teams from each division a playoff spot. I think that, like, it just takes away, like, the specialness of winning the division. Like, because if you don't win the division, you're still going to get in the playoffs anyway. Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but that's fine for right now. Yeah, I think it's fine for this particular season.
Yeah,
I think that's okay.
But, like, moving forward, like, it takes away so much of that, like you said, kind of that exclusivity of winning the division.
I couldn't spit it out either.
Yeah, I mumble mouth. Um, but like it just completely changes the feeling of winning a division. Like it's like, all right, we don't win the division, we're still gonna get in. Who cares? Like, okay, let's go in, let's get healthy, and let's go win in the playoffs. But like, I don't like moving forward. I don't think this should be something that we do year after year. Like it just, like you said, it kind of waters down the playoffs, and teams that are middle of the pack teams that don't belong anywhere near the playoffs are going to get in and possibly have a chance of making a run. Because you never know. I mean, we've had teams in other sports before that limp in as like one of the bottom seeds and then somehow make this magical run to the championship. And like, it just
Yeah.
gives that extra opportunity.
And part of it for me is, in a normal season, in a normal setting, like you're talking about the dog days of summer where baseball's the only thing on TV. It's like, okay, we gotta push for that division crown because now the season's here. Like, you want to get in the playoffs or do you want to get stuck in a 1-game playoff? Like, the best way to do that is to win the division. You kind of take that important aspect of the dog days of summer in June, July, and August of pushing for the playoffs, because you could be second in the division, you get in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the point? Where's the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the point? You play 162 games. That's such a grind. And I understand it's a lot, but at the same time, like, that's what makes baseball so special, like in its purest form, is the grind. Like, you start, it's basically, it's sectioned off in the seasons. Like, you have spring training and then you have the beginning, like April, like the first month, you're like, oh, bad team, you can kind of overcome that. But, come May, when the season's essentially turning full swing to get in the summer, like with 16 teams, it's like, where's that special feeling of like, okay, baseball's like full throttle right now. Like, it's a full go. Like, it will never feel like that until the playoffs actually start. And you could completely just miss everything special that happens in the regular season because of it. Like, I would lose interest in the 162 games because I know that the real season doesn't start until playoffs. Like, and I think for basketball and hockey, it's perfect because they play 82 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have 82 games, like, okay, that's enough to decide who's the 8 teams. But then, like, when the playoffs start, it's a completely different game. And that's fine because the other teams that are near the bottom of the barrel, they stink. And then the ones that are kind of there, it's like, okay, like, let's see what they can do. Are they going to be a problem in the future? Are they going to be, are they just going to tail off? Like, what do these players have? What do they do? Like, in the end, you're just trying to get to the finals anyways. But you can at least kind of enjoy that ride of like the postseason. Like, you can't even enjoy it until the postseason's there, and the postseason won't start until September, which is October, which is like football season. So it just completely dilutes the product in a way that will not only not attract young viewers, it'll turn away the purest baseball fans.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is the 1 year for now that we have to deal with the 16-team playoff. And it was announced earlier this week that the MLB is going with a bubble format like we've had in the NBA, the basketball tournament, the NHL. So there's going to be 4 bubble sites for the playoffs in Arlington. Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas is going to be the main one where the World Series will be played and everything like that. Are you guys happy with them going bubble format for the playoffs, kind of moving forward, kind of keep these guys a little extra safe after 2 more weeks?
I think it's like another, wrinkle and flavor in this weird year that we're having. So it's the AL that will be playing. So they at the wild card, it's still, or in the wild card round, it's still at the all 3 games will be at the higher seed.
Yep.
And then from that point forward, the AL is either playing their games at Minute Maid or Arlington. The NL plays their games at Minute Maid in Arlington, and the AL plays it at Dodger Stadium or Petco. So I feel like that adds like a pretty interesting element to it, and I think like ultimately when it comes to that point, I get it where they can't afford, you make it all this way, and I think they're doing the smart thing and having more of the bubble environment, because at that point, I mean, you can't push it into late. Like, they're already in positions where there's no days off through the championship series, so you can't be getting the scenarios where you have one ALCS series that's like wrapping up, and the other one there's a COVID case, so it's shut down for 3 days. So you sort of have to, take all the necessary precautions, because we don't know what the virus is going to look like in a month. So I mean, it provides some like unique images that, like, when you, like, 20 years from now, like, look back and you'll see like highlights, or be like, why are the Dodgers and the Cubs playing at Minute Maid Park? Oh yeah, it was that, like, COVID year. But it's nothing more. I think, like, unique pieces to it are the fact that there are no off days through the championship series.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a bunch of different nuances in this playoff format that, gives teams certain advantages or disadvantages. One, obviously, being the hitter friendliness of the ballparks. And two, also with no days off, like, that's favoring teams like that have the pitching depth and endurance to make it through that. So I know I like spoke about a bunch of different things, but for me, them playing in the bubble, I think it's a smart precaution, and it's going to add like an interesting piece to it.
Right.
I
Right. Can you mute your TV and stuff?
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting aspect that brings to the table. I mean, we've seen it for
Josh Bell.
Josh Bell.
I can't believe you asked me to mute Josh Bell.
It's an interesting perspective. I mean, we've seen it for the NBA. It's worked so far, but I think it's going to be a little more interesting seeing that it's at like multiple areas or multiple places, all in warm weather. We got 2 in California, Houston, or 2 in Texas. So it's gonna be pretty interesting to have kind of that aspect. The teams in neutral sites. I mean, there's not fans anyway, so that aspect doesn't really come into play. But just kind of being on the road in general, and just playing in different stadiums, being in bubble stadiums and things like that. I think it's going to be pretty interesting for the playoffs, that's for sure.
I think the sites are pretty interesting, and I don't know if you touch on this because I was muting Josh Bell, but with the 4 sites, I think it's really cool because of the fact that because of the time zone difference.
Yeah.
Like, when you start in Houston or Arlington, I believe that's Central Time. So like they could start, I guess, at 10, but for us being on the East Coast, I'm pretty sure that's noon. So like I think that's a great start time. Like you should be able to get all the games in at that point in time. So I think that's cool. Yeah, it's going to be different for them and the people of those time zones, if they want to tune in to baseball, like they have to tune in early at 10 a.m., but who doesn't want to watch sports at 10 a.m.? So, that's kind of cool. But other than that, I think it's smart. I think it's the right move for obvious reasons. You want to do things like eliminate travel. You want to try and keep these players as safe as possible. And you want to do that in order to keep the most competitiveness out of all the teams, because if a player can't play because of COVID, and we've seen it so far this year that, a breakout could happen at any point in time. And when it does, it just completely shuts down a team. It happened to the Cardinals, it happened to the Marlins. Like, you want to make sure that doesn't happen when all the chips are on the table and you're playing for the World Series trophy. So you just want to do it to make sure from that aspect alone, I think it's genius. I think it's smart. I think this is something that should have been done weeks ago, but I'm glad that they're doing it now because it's not like the playoffs are starting tomorrow. They're starting in a couple weeks. So they got time. They had the time to finalize everything, and now they did. Let's rock and roll, baby. So I like it. I like it. One of the few things Manfred did that was smart.
Right. He,
squirrel didn't choke like Clippers.
Find a nut every once. But speaking of the playoffs, we're getting close. We're 2 weeks out. the playoff picture is still tight, but it's kind of becoming a little clearer. You guys talked about it a little bit last week. We talked about it a little bit more this week. I do have a couple questions about it, see what you guys think. So just I want to go over the playoff picture real quick as what it is as tonight. This is Wednesday, September 16th. As of tonight, the White Sox are the number 1 seed in the AL. The Rays are the 2. The Athletics are the 3. The Twins are the 4. The Yankees are the 5. The Astros are the 6. The Blue Jays are the 7. The Indians are the 8. That's in the American League. National League. Dodgers are 1. Cubs are 2. Braves are 3. Padres are 4. Marlins are 5. Cardinals are 6. Phillies are 7. Giants are 8. Okay. I went through that a little quick, but just looking at this playoff picture, guys, there's got to be some things that surprise you. So what are the things that kind of surprise you the most? I think I'm going to hit on at least one of them that I know of, but just to start off,
I mean,
what do you guys think?
I guess like starting at the AL, like I have ESPN's like standings up in front of me here. And I mean the lack of what seems to be like a playoff race here. You know, you have the 8 teams, all of which their probability is 97% and above. The next team with is the Mariners with a 3.6% chance of the playoffs. So it's like you would think there would be these tight races and who would be in the 8, but it's looking like in the AL the races are going to be who aligns where.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be especially interesting, as like not just the division races are going, but who is getting what would that make it, the 4 through 8 seeds. So for me, that really jumps out. Seeing like that clean cut in the AL of the top 8 teams, 97% and up, and everybody else is just well below that. That jumped out to me.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that jumps out to me is even in a 60-game season with 8 teams in the playoffs, that the Angels still aren't going to make the playoffs.
Literally gonna be my next question. Yeah.
Like I don't know what to even say or do. Like I feel so bad because all I want to do is just watch Mike Trout dominate in the playoffs, and they can't even put a team together to do it.
Yeah.
It's infuriating to me because this is a guy that legitimately is the best player of our generation, and I don't know if we're going to see another one. And who knows what's up? But like, bottom line is that it's been 9 years, and he's 0 for 4, and I think it's his only playoff game. Hiccups now because I'm so upset. I can't. I just that to me jumps off the screen the most. The other thing I think that really also jumps off the screen is the fact that the 2 teams at the top are the White Sox and the Rays, and they both legitimately were contenders going in this year. I did not think that it would be at the top, though. Like, the Rays, I thought a chance, but even then I didn't, I was just like, the Yankees are just too good on paper. And then the White Sox, we talked about them. My whole mentality with them is they're a young team, but if they get confident out of the gate, it's just a young team with confidence is a team you don't want to face. And not only does no one want to face them, there beating the brakes off everybody to the point where they're going to be the number 1 seed in these playoffs. So I think that's a little surprising in itself.
I'm kind of excited to see the White Sox as the number 1 seed. I mean, when we made our picks earlier in the year, I think I had them as a play. I can't remember if I had them as a wild card team or if I had them winning the division. But I was excited to see them possibly make the playoffs because they're this young team. They're bringing a lot of energy. Tim Anderson's probably one of my favorite players in the league right now. He's kind of taken everything to a new level. The pitching staff has been pretty solid this year for the most part. But just to go back, I mean, they're a young and exciting team. And they kind of bring that energy in the AL, kind of like the Padres are bringing it in the NL, which is another exciting team to watch. But I mean, to see them as the number 1 seed, it kind of surprised me. It kind of jumped off the page a little bit because I didn't think they would be the best team in the American League heading in, and who knows if they'll be the best team in the American League heading in the playoffs. But just to see them at the top of the standings right now is pretty fun to see. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking at this in the different playoff races, it makes me like wish that they would have just embraced full uniqueness of this year and done the idea where the 1 seed picks their team
Yeah.
and then you like sort of go down. I think that could have made it pretty unique. But yeah, I think that's crazy. The teams that we're seeing up at the top. I mean, especially in the AL, and I know like the other teams that are like surprising me here, like looking at like 7 of the 8 teams that are in the AL, you're like, oh yeah, like makes sense. And then you just have the Blue Jays that are putting together like another young team that, you know, not in the same level of contention timeline as the White Sox and the Padres, but you're like, okay, like that'll be a team in the next few years to like really keep your eye on with all the young talent they have.
Mhm.
And like they're situated in it too. Like they're most likely going to make a playoff run then. And then I'm not sure what their percentage is sitting at now, but then the Marlins with Donnie Baseball leading the way. It's been
Donnie Baseball.
big surprises.
How do the Marlins make the playoffs is my question. Like
I know how. They got the outfield of all outfields, baby. They got Starling Marte, Matt Joyce, and Corey Dickerson. Stand up 2016, 2017 Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's go. No, they got really good. They got really good young starting pitching. They do. It's odd. It's an odd thing because I did not expect. No expectation for this team to compete even the next 5 years, and somehow they're here. But when you got a guy like Sixto Sanchez who is electric, and then you're getting contributions from, I guess, Alcantara, but like not even he's having a decent year. Depth chart's not showing me much, and I guess this is how they got some other young guys too, like Elisa Hernandez, and I probably butchered the name right there, but they got some decent pieces. It's just weird to see them actually competing because again, never really expected it to. But again, Elisa Hernandez, I was right. There you go. So there's that. Yamamoto has been okay too. So I mean, we thought they were going to be the bottom. And then they're here in the playoffs.
Nope.
Like it's something that shouldn't happen, but again, it's happening. 2020, man, it's really crazy. It's a movie right now. Like the Florida Marlins are a team that's going to be in the playoffs. Something that I would have never said. Even the Giants competing, like it's crazy when you look at a team like the Miami Marlins, and you look at the roster of the Washington Nationals, and you see them completely just flopped. Where the Nats are like completely out of it with pitchers like Strasburg, who I know is hurt, and he's been hurt all year. But you have Max Scherzer, he's so much better, infinitely better than anyone the Marlins have. Bottom line is it shouldn't be happening, but it is because 2020. It's crazy.
it's wild, man. It's wild. What's the best World Series matchup that you guys want to see?
I really want to see Dodgers Yankees. I think is number one still on paper, like the best. Yeah. But if I got to pick 2 other teams that aren't going to be in it out of them 2, I really want to see the Padres and the Rays, or I want to see the White Sox versus the Cubs.
Yeah.
Or any combo of those 4.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do we still think it's going to be Yankees Dodgers in the World Series? No.
I'm coming back there. I think it's going to be that. I mean, it's just like it's the chalk pick, I would imagine. I mean, I just think there's so much. I mean, the Yankees are coming back to form, and I don't know if I'm ready to.
They just got Judge back today too.
Yeah.
They needed him, and I believe Stanton's on the horizon. But honestly, I don't care about what year it is. Still, in baseball, pitching rolls off, and all they have is Garrett Cole. Like, I don't believe in anybody else that they have. Like, I know Tanaka's been all right, but like,
Paxton just went on the DL too.
He's transferred from the 45 to get Judge off. And, I mean, J. Happ is your third. Like, is J. Happ really going to thrive in October versus 7 other teams?
Yeah.
Like, I can't get on board. And they're not going to outslug everyone. I know they've been hot. I know that. And this is last week. We were ripping them apart. Me and Brooksy, we were ripping them apart. And since last week, they've absolutely dominated. I mean, they beat the Blue Jays, and then they swept the Orioles, and then they won 20-6 against the Blue Jays. But the bottom line is, you're talking about the Orioles and the Blue Jays. Like, those are teams you're supposed to beat. Those aren't teams that last week we were talking about, like, if they don't beat them, they're going to be in trouble. It's like, I can't even believe we're talking about it. But now, like, they're getting back to form. It's like they're digging themselves out of the hole that they dug themselves in the first place. Where in the end, if they were playing good teams, they'd be done.
Yeah. So
I just can't. I don't believe that they're gonna go in the World Series, and it's gonna be, they're salvaging the season to save. And last week I was like, if they don't make it, they gotta fire Cashman, they gotta fire Boone. Like, they're saving their jobs, and that's fine, because in the end, I don't believe they should be fired anyways. Unless they miss the playoffs completely, then can them. But I don't see them winning the World Series. I just think that there's better teams out there built to beat them. And I mentioned teams like the Rays who have the starting pitching. The White Sox have a good balance of starting pitching and hitting. I think their identity is more hitting, but I think their hitting can keep up with the Yankees' bats. But even like a team like the Indians, they can easily neutralize them in any series because they got some of the best arms out there. Like Shane Bieber's a Cy Young this year. Mm-hmm. And I know Garrett Cole is that guy to go up against him. So if you want anyone to go up against him, it is Garrett Cole. But, I mean, Garrett Cole can win 1-0 games, but right now the way Bieber's pitching, he's not going to allow a hit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that because that's just crazy. He's going to throw no hitter. He's not going to allow a run. I want to see he throws no hitters and just put that on the waves, but yeah, you guys get it.
So who's your AL team then, Dre?
Honestly, I'd say the Rays.
Okay.
I think they're built better top to bottom compared to the White Sox. I think the White Sox, I think they're a year away from really just, being in the championship series. I think the Rays are ready. They were there last year. And now, with a year under their belt and Tyler Glasnow really coming in the form, I think that they'll be the team that kind of goes into the World Series from the American League. But I'm changing my pick, I guess, from the Minnesota Twins. Still holding hope on that, but bottom line is, I think looking at it right now, I think it's the Rays.
Okay. All right. Well, boys, I think that's all we got for tonight. Unless you guys got anything else.
I do not. As of now, last week I said Indians, Dodgers.
Excuse me, I was Clippers. Choking.
Is that the third or the fourth reference?
Number 3.
Can you do 4?
I mean,
we did mention Steve Ballmer, so
yeah.
I'm not going to do a 4th because they only blew 3 games. They only blew a 3-1 lead. So if I do a 4th, it's just.
Can you do? Yeah, I'm just thinking. I mean, like briefly. I think last week I went with Dodgers, Indians, and I'm like leaning back towards, the Yankees. I think a thing for me that, and I mean, you can rationalize it either way, but I think like a big point is a lot of like the nuances in this like playoff structure where, you're not having any off days.
Yeah.
Or you're not having any off days, and I think it's like through the championship series, and like I think that's, a lot different than in the last few playoff atmospheres where you just have 3 pitchers essentially that you're surviving on and then bullpens. So I feel like it's going to be like really different and strange. And with all those like factors that are going in there, it's tough for me right now to pick away from just like where I see the most potential firepower. So I'm still a sucker for the Yankees' potential. So now, as of September 16th, I'm back to the chalk pick of the beginning of the year.
All right, boys. Well,
what about you, Greg?
I
You don't want to pick the Yankees. You don't want to do
Dodgers. I think the Dodgers come out of the National League. I think the American League is honestly up in the air right now. If I had to pick a team, if you had to yank my shoulder, I'd probably pick the Yankees. I think if they get fully healthy with Aaron Judge back in the lineup, Giancarlo Stanton back in the lineup, I don't think it's gonna matter. I don't think pitching is gonna matter. I think they have a potent enough of an offense where they can beat any team. They don't get shut out a lot. Especially if they're playing the way they are right now on this 7-game winning streak. I mean, it's not every night a team puts up 20 runs, and I think last time I saw the score, they were up on the Blue Jays 11-1 as well.
The Braves just did it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So I'm just saying if they get hot, there was the night they put up 20 runs, there was 3 teams that put up 12 or more runs, I think, or something like that. It was a high scoring night. But if they're playing like they are right now in the playoffs, I think they're going to be tough to beat. But I would like to see the White Sox in the World Series, though. Given where they are, how young they are, to make a World Series appearance would be sweet. It would be awesome to see. Where are the Twins? Where are you guys with the Twins? Any love for Minnesota?
They don't. They're kind of disappointing me right now. They're not really the sexy pick. I thought they were going in this year, and that's because of all the home runs they hit last year. But they've regressed a lot. Not so much to the point where they aren't contenders. It's just so much where I'm not as confident in them now as I was going into the season.
Okay.
I think they could, but again, I guess time will tell. It's just right now. I think they're at best. I think they're the 5th best team. That's where they're ranked. So it's just tough. It's tough because the pitching's not there and the hitting's not there. It's there right now, but it's not where it was last year, especially with the hitting. At least they had an identity last year. This team don't really have an identity right now. They're not building on their bullpen. They're not building on their pitching. They're supposed to be building on their hitting, and to me, it's just kind of unwowing. So who knows? But that's part of the magic that could be the playoffs. The whole thing could change as soon as the playoffs start, and they could just start slugging the hell out of the ball because they got the bat to do it. So
definitely. All right, boys. Well, episode 28. It's in the books. Thanks for joining us again, guys. We'll see you next week.